paradigm shift, which is quietly reshaping the way that science understands reality, consciousness, and the mind. In this episode of the new Paranormal, we're going to explore that paradigm shift. This channel is dedicated to tracking emerging scientific ideas that challenge the materialist model of reality, especially ones that relate to consciousness, perception, and human experience. We are definitely about certain things here. We are all about conducting a careful, evidence-based exploration of consciousness. Definitely a place for open-minded inquiry without ridicule. And I'm hoping it will become a home for both curious minds and skeptics alike. Now, there are definitely some things that this channel is not interested in being about. We're not about a belief system. We're not about trying to debunk anyone. And we are certainly not trying to claim that all paranormal phenomena that get reported are equally valid and legitimate. Some of them are not. Science has certainly made a lot of progress, and yet an explanation for subjective experience still remains one of its greatest unsolved mysteries. One of the questions we're going to be asking on this channel is whether or not some of our outdated assumptions might actually be holding us back and limiting what it is that we're able to observe and explain. So this is going to be an open-ended investigation, and no dogma, no rush. We're just going to be asking some questions that we think are important to be asking. Some of the topics that we're going to be exploring on this channel include consciousness and the limits of neuroscience, quantum theories of mind. We will also be exploring telepathy, perception, and nonlocal awareness, science, culture, and the implications of a consciousness-first universe. There's a quiet sensation moving through the world right now. Most people can feel it, but only a few can name it. It's that feeling that something is off, and not just something wrong in the news cycle, not just stressful or chaotic, but a feeling that something just doesn't quite fit right. We wake up into endless crises that never seem to resolve, wars that grind on and on without meaning or closure. Institutions that used to promise stability now seem hollow or performative. Technologies advancing faster than our capacity to integrate them, while the human nervous system quietly buckles under the strain. We're told that this is normal, this is just what progress looks like. But deep down, many of us know that this explanation no longer works. And this isn't just about geopolitics, pandemics, or economic anxiety. It's about something much more fundamental. The world, as it is currently organized, no longer fits the human beings who are living inside it.
What?
So if you're feeling anxious, burnt out, restless, or disoriented, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. That just means that you're starting to realize that the story we've all been living inside of doesn't make sense anymore. The map no longer matches the territory. Every civilization rests on a shared understanding of what reality is. Now, for most of human history, that understanding was unified. Mind and matter weren't separate categories. Nature wasn't inert. The universe wasn't dead. From ancient India to early China to the earliest Greek philosophers, reality was experienced as a living continuum. To study the world was to study intelligence itself, expressed through form. But all that began to change during the scientific revolution. In the 16th and 17th century, figures like Francis Bacon argued that knowledge should be extracted through method. Isolate the variables, measure the outcomes, repeat the experiment. Galileo Galilei pointed instruments at the heavens and showed that celestial motions obeyed mathematical law. And then came Isaac Newton, who provided the equations to complete the picture. A universe composed of particles, governed by fixed laws, predictable in principle, if not always in practice. It worked spectacularly. Modern science was born. So was medicine and industry, electricity and spaceflight. But that success came with a trade-off that was rarely acknowledged. To measure reality, scientists had to exclude what couldn't be measured. Subjective experience, meaning, awareness itself. Nature became an object. Observer was removed from the equation. And what began as a tool quietly became a worldview. And that worldview reshaped everything. The universe was redefined as a machine. Humans were redefined along with it. No longer participants in a living cosmos. We became operators inside a system, biological mechanisms. Consciousness rebranded as a byproduct of chemistry. The older understanding of humanity as an expression of something larger didn't disappear. It was simply downgraded, reclassified as metaphor, belief, or superstition. At first, it seemed to work. Material comforts increased, lifespans expanded, control replaced mystery. But slowly, something vital went missing. People became productive, but disconnected. They were digitally linked, yet emotionally isolated. They became materially wealthy, yet existentially empty. This wasn't a moral failure. It was an identity mismatch. A species evolved for connection was trying to survive inside a story built on separation. When a story becomes too small for the creatures that inhabit that story, it starts to hurt. We call that pain normal life, chronic anxiety, burnout treated as achievement, loneliness in crowds, mental illness becoming widespread rather than exceptional. These aren't personal failures. This is systemic feedback. War emerges when separation becomes ideology. Poverty emerges when worth is reduced to productivity. An ecological collapse emerges when the earth is treated like inert matter rather than a living system. Even disease mirrors this logic. Fragmented systems produce fragmented outcomes. Pain is part of growth, but suffering is what happens when pain is filtered through a worldview that denies connection. Suffering isn't inevitable, it's structural, and that means it can change. But here's the part that rarely makes the headlines. The old system is cracking, not because it was evil, but because it was incomplete. And quietly, across discipline, something older and deeper is re-emerging. In physics, quantum entanglement shows that particles remain linked across distance. Space itself appears to be relational, not empty. The quantum vacuum, once thought to be nothing, seethes with activity, an invisible medium that connects all things, and I mean everything. In biology, communication is proven fundamental. Cells exchange information with faint light emissions called biophotons. Electrical fields guide growth and regeneration, as demonstrated by researchers like Michael Levin. In neuroscience, structures that were once dismissed as mere scaffolding are now being reconsidered. Theories like orchestrated objective reduction, proposed by Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, suggest that consciousness may involve quantum coherence at the cellular level. Ecology reveals forests linked by underground fungal networks, colonies behaving like minds, the planet functioning less like a machine and more like an organism. Even human groups show measurable coherence when aligned toward a shared purpose. Across scales, the same pattern repeats. Unity expressing itself as multiplicity. Now, despite all the evidence, the paradigm still hasn't shifted. Why not? Because we're still using a fragmented lens to interpret coherent data. Each discipline speaks its own language. Physics, biology, psychology, economics. Each sees a piece of the truth, but there's no shared grammar. So the fragments accumulate without integrating. What's missing isn't data. What we need is a way of seeing that can hold both matter and meaning. Whatever comes next, it must do a few essential things. It must bridge science and spirituality without collapsing either. It must be testable in lived experience, not just in theory. It must function across scales, from neurons to nations. And it must include subjective experience as real data. But above all, it must be humane. And for those of you who have been following this channel, you probably already know Federico Fagini's quantum information panpsychism theory checks all those boxes. Any worldview that makes us smarter but less compassionate is incomplete. This isn't about adopting a new belief system. It's about developing a new literacy, learning to recognize living systems, and designing technologies that serve life, building societies aligned with the reality of interconnection. Paradigms don't change by decree. They change because a better one comes along and works quietly until the old one becomes impossible to defend. Every era ends the same way. The map stops matching the terrain. That's where we are now. But the collapse isn't the end of the story. It's the opening for a new one. The discomfort that so many people are feeling right now isn't a failure. It's the pressure of a larger coherence trying to emerge. We don't need to invent it from scratch. The pieces are already there. Across science, across culture, across lived human experience. Our task is simple, but it's not easy. We have to learn to see again, to gather the fragments, to build a lens wide enough to take in the whole of existence. And we have to learn how to ask better questions. What kind of a world would fit us right now? What kind of a science could encompass the full range of experience? What technologies could we invent that would serve life rather than consume it? If you feel that pull, then you're already a part of what's coming next. And this is just the beginning of our new story.
The Department of Defense continues to investigate these UAP incidents with transparency and rigor.
Is there any indication of a threat to national security?
At this time, none that we can confirm.